Recording. So, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. For those of you who are new or who have forgotten what the purpose of these videos is, I'm making these because I want to talk about what it's like to live with a physical disability, albeit not a life-threatening or extremely debilitating one, but still a pain. And consequent ongoing mental health issues. Again, probably of a similar level of severity, so not seriously dangerous. And at times incorporating my love of surfing. Actually surfing, on a surfboard, on the waves, doing that stuff. I don't get to do enough of it, but I've got a big trip coming up soon, so I will get an opportunity, hopefully, to get some footage of me in my little wetsuit falling off the board. I fall off way more than I stay on. Quick disclaimer before I start talking. I am not a trained medical professional in any way, shape or form. I'm not a paramedic, I'm not a nurse, I have no psychiatric training, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a surgeon. It's just me, and everything I say is not professional medical advice and cannot be construed as such. It is just my opinion. If you are unwell in any way, shape or form, then please take yourself off to the nearest emergency room or A&E department, whatever it's called in your part of the world, or see a doctor, or if you're in the UK, you would dial 111 for non-serious issues or 999 for emergencies. Definitely don't take advice from me when it comes to that. Everything's just opinion, okay? So, change of tone. I'm going to do something different, and then I'm going to explain why. Because there's a story surrounding this. I think it's a good story. I like it. It's full of hope and promise. It's kind of beautiful in its own way. So I'm going to read in very badly accented Russian a very old poem written by Alexander Pushkin. And the name of the poem is Uznik. And Uznik is the Russian word for prisoner. And this would have been written during the Tsarist era. So it's an old classical Russian poem. It's quite short. So without further ado, I'm taking a sip of my water. Oh, that's nice. Okay. Uznik. Сижу за решеткой в темнице серой. Вскормленный в неволе орел молодой. Мой грустный товарищ, махая крылом, кровавую пищу клюет под окном. Клюет и бросает, и смотрит в окно, как будто самого задумал одно. Зовет меня взглядом и криком своим, и вымолвит хочет, давай улетим. Мой вольный аппетит, пора, брат, пора. Туда, где за тучей белеет гора. Туда, где синеют моря края. Туда, где гуляем, лишь ветер дая. So, thank you for listening to that. There were some mispronunciations in there, so sincere apologies to any Russian listeners who are throwing things at the screen right now. I'm a student of Russian language, I'm not very good at it. So, the poem translates into the following. I'll read it word for word from the translation. This is a great book, by the way. These Pushkin poems, and it's got Russian on one side and the English translation on the other. So it's very handy if you're learning. But prisoner. And the translation here is I'm sitting behind the bars in the dungeon damp, fed in captivity, the eagle young. My sad comrade, my grushny tovarish, waving a wing. Bloody food is pecking under the window. He's pecking and he's quitting and he's looking in the window, as if with me has bethought long. He is calling me with the gaze and the screech of his, and to articulate once, let's fly away. We are free birds. It's time, brother. It's time. There, where behind the storm cloud is whitening a mountain. There, where are showing blue the sea lands. There, where are walking only wind and I. So, thank you for listening to that. Now the story behind the poem and why it means something to me. I'm not a big poetry buff. I can quote Ozymandias and this, and that's about it. One or two others. But the story behind this one is that when I was first referred to the Project 180 mental health support group, which I've described in other chapters, so please, go look that up yourself. I was in a very, very fragile emotional state. And my emotions were under like a paper thin layer of skin. And it didn't take much to set me off. And at the time, the dystonia was moving fast into my body, or through my body. In the space of a few months, I went from being fully able to where I am now, which means, yes, I can get about, but it's uncomfortable and painful, and driving is out of the question. So my life was being completely reshaped by forces outside of my control in a way which I had not anticipated and didn't really think of. I mean, you never think of these things happening to you, and when they do, it can be a real blow. It can really be quite a traumatic shock. So I read this poem, Uznik, and it moved me really deeply because there was so much that I read into that. When the author talks about Oriol Molodoi, which is the young eagle, I think the eagle is a metaphor for the man's spirit or his soul. Let's just find the poem. Mój grusny towarzysz macha krylom. So my sad comrade flapping his wings. So I get the impression this is a wounded eagle who's talking about a baby. But it could also be his soul feeling damaged and feeling the pain of captivity. Because prison in Tsarist Russia can't have been much fun. And then the middle verse is a bit brief, really. It just describes the relationship between the prisoner and the eagle. And towards the end of that second verse, the eagle talks, and that's the rest of the poem. So from the point where he says, Davai, uletim, moi volnie petitie, so it's like, we are the same, you and I, something like that. It's time to go. Para, brat, para, which is, it's time, brother, it's time. Tuda gudzeza tuche biliet gora. So, where behind the storm cloud is whitening a mountain. Tuda gudzesineot morskie kraya. Which is there where I'm showing the blue sea lands. So he's literally giving you a painting. It's a very visual poem. Tuda gudze goliaim lishviter daya. And that was the last line that I always found very, very moving and emotional. There where I'm walking, only the wind and I. So it's very beautiful, but it's very solitary as well. And I think it expressed the man's desire for his soul, for his dying soul to be free. I feel he was dying in this prison and he felt like this. And the eagle is the metaphor, saying, let's fly away. Let's fly away to a place of solitude and peace and beauty. And this poem has always stuck with me because of that. And I remember talking about it in the group work we did and the reaction was quite interesting because uh, this sounds snobby and it's not meant to be, but I'm sat with a bunch of guys, many of whom have just got out of prison. Some for being quite naughty boys, mainly violence and substance abuse, nothing that goes beyond into the extreme categories. And I was telling them about this poem, and they were really interested. Um, and they were quite keen to hear me read it to them, and the opportunity didn't arise, unfortunately. But it's always interesting the responses you get from people. You know, sometimes something just reaches you, and it's hard to explain why. And regardless of your background or your upbringing, and I suppose that's the beauty of art and poetry and literature. It doesn't matter where you are, where you're from, who you are. Sometimes something will just reach into your soul and hold it. And on Friday morning of last week, I woke up and went through my usual ritual. And I was looking briefly on Instagram. I'm not an addict to that thing, but I do look at it occasionally. I've got some good friends who have useful channels. And one of my longest time dearest friends, an artist called Alistair Gordon. I'm going to put a link to his material. He was making a little video about his latest collection of work, and I caught a glimpse of a painting that he'd done, quite large, about 90 by 70 centimeters. So it's sizable but not huge. And I saw it, and I immediately thought this poem. It just captured what I had in my mind when I read this poem about freedom, the desire to be free, and the whole thing resonates because I had the dystonia and I had this force taking over my body, and I felt like a prisoner in my own body. My body had become a cell, and my soul was the eagle. So the poem just aligned itself perfectly with my emotional state at that point. And then the painting did the same thing. It brought that memory back and all the trauma and the tears and the breakdown. And it's not easy when you're in your 50s to admit that you had a breakdown. You're meant to be tougher than that, or that's a sort of expectation, but we're not. We're only human. And we all have moments where things get to us and break us. Everyone has a breaking point. It's a myth that some people just can't be broken. Everyone can be broken. Trust me. It just takes the right set of circumstances. So I saw this video from my friend Al, and I saw the painting, and I just thought, oh my god, that I just got to have that painting. I'm going to buy it. And I'm not an art lover. Don't hate art. I've been to all the galleries in London. I've enjoyed the experience multiple times, but I don't know all the artists and their histories, and I understood a little bit about the production process of artwork, sculpture, etc. Just by what's the word I'm looking for? Just by absorbing the osmosis process of being around other artists by my friend Al. So I messaged him and I said, I've seen your video and there's a painting there that I really like. Is it for sale? And he went, yeah, and it's this much, and it's currently hanging on a wall in an art gallery in Chicago. Because apparently, for some reason, apart from the fact that his art is good, Chicago seems to be very keen on buying Al's work. And he said, I don't know whether it's been sold yet, but I've got others like it. And I went, no, I want that one. And he does have others that are similar, but it was that particular painting that I wanted and needed. I really felt a need for it. So he went, all right, I'll put you in touch with the gallery. So 5 minutes later, I'm emailing the owner of the gallery, and very shortly after, I offered the backstory. Said I'm a long-time friend of Al's, and I've seen his painting, and I've fallen in love with it. And crazy as it sounds, would you mind selling it to me and shipping it back to the UK, where it should come from? And of course, she was fascinated and went, yeah, I'd love to. And so then she put me in touch with somebody else, like one of her staff, and we made the arrangements, and I shared some stories about our youthful days together, me and Al going running in the hills around Blackburn, which we used to do. Then we would come back to my little soggy flat that I had, perpetually damp, and we'd eat a big pile of bacon sarnies and have conversations, and it's yeah, that was a really great, beautiful time in my life, and I'm very grateful for it. So I'm now the proud owner of this painting, and we need to arrange to get it shipped back from Chicago. I'm now I'm now an international art connoisseur. And it wasn't that cheap. I'm not going to say the price. It's not like cripplingly expensive, but it was like I haven't spent that much money for a while. But first of all, it's beautiful. It'll sit on my wall, and I'll look at it, and I'll feel happy. I'm just going to point the camera to where it will be. So scanning around, scanning around, scanning around. There's a door, and as you can see, there's a big patch of wall there next to the lamp. And I've been meaning for a while to put something there. A long time, actually. But never really had a really good idea what it should be. Camera's going to go fuzzy for a bit, so please, I'm sorry about that. Camera failure. Right, it'll be fuzzy for a bit. It'll sort itself out. So yeah, I'm gonna get a bit of light. Oh my god, this camera. Please behave yourself. Right, it'll just fuzz out for a minute. Anyway, yeah. So, what is this painting? It's going to be on that wall. I can't wait to show it you all. I'm going to put a thumbnail up in the video for another piece of work by Al, because I'd like it to be a surprise for you, my loyal viewers, when it does go up. I'm quite excited about this, as you can tell, because I can't shut up about it. I mean, I've never bought art internationally and had it shipped in. It's a weird thing to do. Especially to somebody who just doesn't really care that much about art generally. But it felt important, spiritually, mentally, intellectually. And I think it's important to surround yourself as best as you can with things that have meaning and which are beautiful. Doesn't have to be something expensive. I think you just have to be waiting for and have your heart open to whatever it is that you're going to see or hear that really reaches to you. And it could be anything at all. It doesn't have to be a painting, or it doesn't have to be a piece of classical music. It could be a pop song for all I care. I mean, some songs will just get through to you. Some pieces of artwork will do that. So maybe that's the lesson there. Be open to the beauty in the world, regardless of where you are. It's very good for your mental health if you're struggling. So that's the first subject. Next thing comes again from Friday, where I went from dizzying heights of purchasing this artwork to plumbing the depths of despair once I realised that the presentation I'll be giving tomorrow, or I was meant to be giving tomorrow, I wasn't even remotely prepared for. I'd totally misunderstood the brief, and I had no material that was of much use, really. I was down to like 3 sentences of text, and I've got to turn that into a presentation. And I've got a very good boss. He's very kind and he's very patient, but he's still human. And I messaged him and I said, I really don't think there's any material here for a presentation, to be honest. And his response was a bit brittle, in the sense that, what are you talking about? You were told what to do, why haven't you done it? And over a conversation on Teams, we established that I'd misunderstood. I hadn't been paying attention to what he wanted. And he was angry, but intelligent and polite enough not to lose his shit over it. He described his emotional state as underwhelmed, which is a very diplomatic way of saying he was angry with me. And his anger is justified. And but being the good guy that he is, instead of just using it as an excuse to beat the shit out of me mentally and, verbally. He came up with a constructive solution where I would produce what I can, and he'll fill in the blanks because he actually knows all about the subject matter. Which does make me wonder why he wanted me to do the presentation in the first place, but he's got a rationale, and it's his rationale, and he's the boss, and I respect that. So this weekend I've put together like a framework of a presentation in PowerPoint, and then I hurriedly messaged all of my colleagues saying, I've screwed up, I need some information from you, ideally before 1 PM on Monday. And you can give me those answers. I can slot them into the PowerPoint presentation and it'll be okay. So there's a theme there as well in terms of mental health and just generally coping with life. Something that could have turned into an unpleasant argument with rude words exchanged and people slamming the phone down and stamping around. Didn't go there. Gareth was mature enough to handle it well, and I had the common sense and the humility, which comes from aforementioned quality of mental fortitude, I think. I didn't allow myself to get too defensive and start making laws and loads of excuses. I did say, well, we've had a lot on this last few weeks, migrations, and a lot of stuff was broken this week, but ultimately he just said, well, yeah, that's fair enough, but I still wanted you to do it. It's your responsibility to fit this in. So we handled it well, and I'm quite proud of that, despite the fact that it was a bit of a mess. And I think it adheres to a principle in a previously made video on the subject of kintsugi, which is the Japanese art of reassembling broken porcelain and using a special gold solder to hold it all together. And you end up with something that has these veins of gold moving naturally amongst the pieces of ceramic, and you end up with something that is actually very beautiful to look at. I think it was chapter 2 or 3 of my video series, on my channel rather. Bear with me a second, chapter 3. If you go back to chapter 3, I discussed the principle of kintsugi and the notion of taking up a shitty situation and instead of letting it spiral out of control because you're not controlling your emotions, remain in control and don't be the person who falls apart and starts screaming and shouting and being overly defensive or overly aggressive. And I also followed my own advice, which I'm really proud of, and I've put into my little gratitude diary. I'm grateful that I had the common sense to respond accordingly and admit that I'd made a mistake openly and said, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening to you fully. I misunderstood the brief. This is on me. And I think we'll come out better after this, once Gareth's kind of calmed down a little bit. Sorry, Gareth. I really am sorry. The good news is it's just like internal to our team. It's not like I'm presenting to the company or anything, but I'm going to have to be a bit more careful going forward. The truth is, since I've started taking on my medications, I'm not as focused as I was. I can feel the difference. It's not like I'm losing my mind completely, but I'm a little bit slower. My memory is a little bit, not perfect. A bit compromised, shall we say. And it's not enough to have a serious impact, but I do kind of occasionally struggle a little bit with attention. Although that's kind of like been me through my entire life as well. Should have seen me in school. I came out of school with no qualifications whatsoever because I just couldn't pay attention. Anyway, so that's the story of my screwy presentation. So you'll get an update tomorrow afternoon, I think, and I'll let you all know how it went without giving anything too revealing that I might get in trouble for. So moving on, and this is actually what I was originally going to talk about, but Friday was such an interesting day. In the morning I was like going around with my head sort of swelling with the enormity of what I'd just done, like paid a lot of money for this piece of artwork, totally totally spontaneously, no planning or anything. Just trust. And then plunging the depths by letting my manager down, which I do feel bad about because he's a good guy. He's all right. There's not many good bosses out there, I think. It's hard to get a really good one, and I've been very lucky in the past. And all my bosses have been good, patient people. I know a lot of shitty ones out there as well. I've had plenty of them. So here's to you, Gareth. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about was hate and negative attitudes towards people with disabilities. Now, I did have a look around the Scope website. Scope is a charity that deals with people with disabilities. And they had a great little page where they'd done research investigating negative attitudes that people had experienced as people with disabilities. And I wanted to bring it up, but for some reason I can't get the browser to work correctly on this particular video platform at the moment. I'll have something ready for you next week. I said that to Gareth 2 weeks ago about the presentation. Anyway, I'll have something for you. It was an interesting study. I wonder if I can just get the numbers up now and just read them to you. I can't get it on screen, so I apologise for that. Not changing attitudes. Attitudes research, I think, is what I wanted. Yeah, so it reads something like this. Our research into attitudes has found 3 out of 4 disabled people, 72%, okay, have experienced negative attitudes or behaviour in the last 5 years. Now, my immediate reaction is to push back against that and go, well, no, it can't be right. Everyone's brilliant. Everyone's been really nice to me. And I thought back and I just remembered there was a time where I was catching a flight, and it was last year. I was flying back from Portugal, and it was all a bit of a mess because what had happened was a really heavy fog came in a night or two before my flight home from Portugal. And even with today's modern sophisticated instrument landing systems and jetliners, landing in heavy fog, and it was very heavy fog, is not desirable. So they diverted all the planes away. The implication of that was come morning, there's no planes at the airport to fly anybody anywhere. So I looked at this and I just thought, I'm not even going to the airport. There'll be no point. It'll be chaos. So what they did was give us the opportunity to choose a flight back at, their expense, obviously. It didn't cost us a penny. In fact, I think I got a refund for the whole flight. So kudos to Air Portugal. Good for you. Thank you. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to wait for a day or two because then things will calm down. I'll be able to choose a better flight because all the available flights from Portugal to England, which were booked at incredibly short notice by, people trying to solve this problem, they're all 15-hour flights, changing in Germany, and I can't do 15 hours in a plane anymore. I can't do 15 minutes in a chair most of the time. So I waited a day or two. So I extended my holiday a little bit. I just did sunbathing and a little bit of wandering up and down the beach and having a coffee at the little cafe right down the road, which I really like. I like it because they serve it straight away when they see me. I don't even need to ask now, they know who I am. The weird looking English guy who comes staggering in and just sits himself down and waits. 2 minutes later, the cappuccino arrives. So, anyway, I get a replacement flight organised. It's a shorter one. It's going to be 2 hours at most. I'm happy with that. I get on the plane, and because I'd had to rebook with a different flight, I didn't get my ideal seat. My ideal seat on a plane is to sit with the window on this side of me here so that I can get a pillow behind my head and lean against it. Which is obviously a lot less painful and uncomfortable than sitting up all the time. I mean, you can see I'm like constantly moving because I'm trying to ease discomfort. So I'm sorry if I look really fidgety. I'm too hot. That's better. Too damn hot. So got on the plane, got the seat. I'm sat on an aisle seat. I was sat on an aisle seat with this side of my body on the side of the aisle, so I was kind of, because I can't sit straight very easily, I was kind of starting to lean into the aisle like this, and it was a bit awkward, and it wasn't fun. It was uncomfortable. So there was a passing steward on the flight before takeoff, and I stopped him and I said, "Excuse me, I've got this situation. Is it possible that I could just sit over there on that empty seat over there?" And it was like on the other side of a curtain where you have like not first class but premium class to get meal and things like that. And I said, "There's nobody sat there. Would you mind if I just sit in that seat instead? I don't want to be upgraded. I just need the seat because I'm in pain." And all I got out of this prick of a guy was, "We don't offer free upgrades." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, I understand that. And I'm not asking for an upgrade. I'm asking you to help me relieve my pain by allowing me to move into a seat which isn't occupied. I will be as quiet as a church mouse." And this dickhead of a guy just flat out refused. He wouldn't even look at me. And he just kept saying, "Nope, we don't offer free upgrades." And then he wandered off and carefully avoided eye contact for a while. So I sat there stewing in my seat, uncomfortable, and I thought, well, I can take this, so I can do something about it. And at first I was a bit angry. So I was genuinely considering lying down in the aisle in protest. And you can imagine the footage on YouTube Shorts for that. That'd be quite good fun. But again, I thought, be the bigger man, be mature, mental fortitude and all that. Yes, you're angry. Don't let your anger control you. You will not win. You will just come across like a twat. Sorry, I'm just straightening the camera. There we go. So I thought, all right, what I'll do is I'll just ask another. Fucking god damn this stupid camera! I'm not cutting that out. You may as well see what I'm like when I'm in a mood. Right, get it straightened out. Least professional video ever. Right, let's just move you a little bit. I think that's better. Yes, I'm here. So I approached one. I beckoned over one of the female stewardess, and I sort of told her the same story, and she gave me the same answer actually. And I laid it on a bit thick and said, "Look, I'm not asking for an upgrade. I don't want you to give me free food or anything. You can leave me alone. Please just let me take that seat. I'm in pain." So then she went, "Oh, I'll have to ask the chief stewardess." I was like, "All right, you go and ask the chief stewardess then." So stewardess number 3 comes up, and I tell the same story again. And by this point, they're kind of starting to crack a bit. They're starting to realise like dawn is breaking in their minds, and they understand this isn't just guy. This isn't a guy who's just trying to cause a problem. This is a guy who has a problem and is asking for help. So she then said, "Right, well, I'll have to go and ask the captain." And I was like, "Oh God, just go and ask the fucking captain then." So she went to the captain for a few minutes, came back and said, "Captain said it's fine, but I need to ask the other passenger in the premium set if he minds you being there." Right, okay, go and ask him then, that's fine, I'll sit quietly. So I was a gentleman about all of this. And the guy on the premium section just went, "Yeah, no problem, couldn't care less. If he wants to sit there, that's fine." A really cool guy, I really like that bloke. So I got to sit in my chair. I was comfortable, I could put a pillow in place. And the staff, once they realised I wasn't just trying it on, once they realised I was legit, they cooled down and they were, they were asking if I needed anything and all that kind of thing. I should have asked them to strangle that male steward who refused me in the first place. But I hope to see him on another Air Portugal flight because I'm going to give him such a dirty look. So I go from my initial thoughts of I haven't had a bad experience to actually yes I have, but it was only once. I've only had one person be rude to me, and it was that guy. Some of the ideas, some of the concepts around experiencing negative attitudes. One of them was 19% of the people surveyed cited having been stared at or people giving them looks. Now, that has definitely happened to me a lot. When you see some twitching skinhead walking down the street, staggering sideways with a stick, and he's got a bit of meat on his bones and a tattoo on his arm. Not the sort of person you're going to start abusing if you've got any sense. Not that I'm a violent man at all, my mates know that. But if you don't know me, I probably might actually look a bit crazy. So people do look at me, but it's kind of brief. They look and then they figure out what it is. It's a guy with a movement disorder. He's obviously not well, and then nothing happens. I've experienced way more kindness than cruelty. And there's different cultures and different results. So in Britain, people generally just give you a bit of space. Stand back if you're taking your time doing something. In Portugal, people are far more interested in actively helping you, which is quite interesting. I've had people asking if they'd like help, if I would like help in having my shopping bags carried up to the chalet from the supermarket. I always say no, I'm fine, I'll carry it. I'm fit and strong enough, but I'm grateful that people are still like that. Or people who just spontaneously start helping me pack my bags when I'm at the supermarket. Lots of things like that. One that was really nice was I took myself on a boat cruise along the river, the Douro River in Porto. Go to Portugal for your next holiday. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And I think the crew of the boat felt a bit sorry for me. They probably thought I was in a worse state than I actually am. They may have thought I'm a bit. So I've got a photo of me wearing the captain's hat because the owner of the yacht that we had the trip on came up to me and gave me this hat and stuck it on my head, and they're making a little bit of a fuss of me because they took sympathy. Showed sympathy for me. Expressed it. So it was kind of a clumsy attempt to show kindness and compassion. And I think the clumsiness of it is irrelevant. It's the fact that there's so many people that actually do care. I think we live in a far more enlightened society than we think sometimes. I was in a supermarket just up the road here in Belvedere in London a few weeks ago in the Co-op. And I was waiting for all my stuff to go through the checkout and had my bags ready. And there's a woman stood 5 feet away and she's looking at me. And I'm trying not to look at her, but she's on my right. So it's like quite difficult not to look at somebody when your head's always there. So I was trying to turn my body away and sort of do that in my head and keep looking in different directions. And so she was kind of like curious about, who is this guy? Is he a maniac? Is he going to pull out a weapon? And then she realised, no, this is a guy with a handicap. So she said, would you like some help packing your bags? And I'm like, no, I'm fine, I'm good. She said, are you sure? I'll help. And I was like, no, I'm really good. And she went, oh, you men, you're all the same. You have to do everything yourselves. It's like, well, yeah, I do. I said, well, you women, you're always having to be incredibly kind to us. And she said, are you making fun of me? I went, no, I'm serious. Most people are kind. And I got a look at her, and she looked. She looks like somebody who has lived tough for at least a period of their life. You get to know the looks on these people when you're amongst them a lot, which I've had that. People have just had a tough life, but are good people. And what she did was really kind and sweet. And I took to her character immediately. I thought she's a nice person. So if I see her again, I'll give her a big smile and thank her again for offering to pack my bags. So the world's full of kindness and generosity. The media keep telling us the world's full of cruelty and war and death and misery. Well, that is out there, yeah. But most people, I think, when it comes down to it, are kind. Yeah. I don't think it matters too much where you are. Cultures will dictate how people express their kindness. So in Portugal, people want to carry my bags. In England, it's a bit more understated, but people give me space and they're kind of respectful. Yeah. But that's my experience. People with other disabilities may have had it worse. They may live in parts of the country where people are a bit shitty, and are not sympathetic and can be cruel and mean. I know that goes on. But it's not so bad that it happens to everybody all the time. That's all I'm saying on the subject, really. So it's a video full of positive messages. We discussed responding emotionally to the painting and just going, fuck this, I'm buying it. I can afford it. It makes me cringe a bit when I think what I've paid, but and the poem and the beauty of that. We talked about Kinski and my mishap with the presentation. I'll be glad when that's done. And finally, we wrapped up on hate and negative attitudes. I'll do a bit more on hate and negative attitudes going forwards. I want to look through the data that's provided in the Scope website. I think they've used a fairly small sample size, so I'm not sure how accurate the data is, but clearly some people are experiencing negative behaviour on the basis of their disability, whether they're blind or deaf or physically disabled in terms of movement, like me, or whatever. It's obviously happening to somebody somewhere. So if I have a message here, it's if you see somebody who really makes you feel like there's something wrong, think before you open your mouth. I got some feedback from last week's video, and it's a friend I've not seen for a long time, but a friend. And his wife unfortunately had a stroke, and I think it was quite a bad one from what I can make out. So he's having to deal with all that. And he messaged me after last week's video, and apparently the statements I made, or the point I made, where I said something along the lines of try walking in my shoes for a day, see what it's like, that really resonated with him, and he brought up the subject of like some of the bad attitudes he's experienced. So it must be out there. I've just been lucky. I just think I look like too much of a nutter, to be honest. And I'm walking around doing this, and I've got a skinhead and a stick. I think people just look at me and go, "Nah, not worth it. Leave him alone." So there's a lot to be said for looking mental. Yeah, try it sometime. Right, I'm gonna. Shit, is there anything else I want to add to this? No, I'm gonna wrap up on that. Let's wrap up on a happy note. There's a lot of kindness in the world. You keep your eyes open for it. Don't take it for granted. See it, appreciate it, and show gratitude. The guy on the plane who allowed me to sit next to him, I remember shaking his hand afterwards and just saying, thank you for being a gentleman about this. And you know what? He was a great guy. He was really cool. And he was very pleasant to talk to, briefly. So let's end on a high. Thank you so much for watching. You've got this far. You've managed 43 minutes. Well done. I do have a buy me a coffee link in my description. It just helps chip in for the cost of cameras and bits and pieces. So I'm always grateful for a donation, but I don't expect it. So if you've got something spare and you feel this video was worth it, then please do donate. But if you don't, it's fine. Just the most important thing really is that I would like you all to share these videos with somebody and say, look, this is a guy telling his story. He's not dressing it up. There's no careful editing. He's a bit vulgar sometimes and he stumbles over his words. But he means every word he says. And he's not trying to create an impression that isn't realistic. This is how I am all the time, just with less talking. So thank you all so much for coming along. I hope to make more and more of these videos. I keep coming up with ideas for things to talk about, so I think we're okay. And I look forward to seeing you next week, hopefully. This is the 10th chapter that I've done, so a little, woo, yeah! I had 10 chapters of this. Didn't think I'd stick it out this long, to be honest. So we'll see how we do. Maybe we'll get to 100 one day, who knows. So yes, once again, thank you. Have a fantastic week. I hope you've got plans. If you haven't, make some, because the devil makes work for idle hands. I hope you stay on top of your fitness and your diet, your emotional health. I might try and do an emotional health check-in video tomorrow morning, but I might be a bit busy repairing my presentation. Either way, I wish you all a good week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And I look forward to making another video for you. Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, and remember, these are the good days.